Not too long ago, I was scrolling on my Facebook when I stumbled across this video that was on my friend's timeline. I watched the video, and as I was watching it, within those 8 minutes and 17 seconds, I went from feeling this wave of warmth and joy to feeling this extreme frustration and anger. And before I explain why I was feeling these conflicting emotions, let me first introduce the star of the video itself. This is Cody Lee. He is a 22-year-old singer-songwriter and pianist from Utah. Some of you might recognize him from his viral audition video for America's Got Talent that has now received almost 50 million views. For those of you who haven't seen it, when the video starts out, Cody is being escorted on stage by his mother, holding tightly onto her arm, rocking slightly back and forth as she explains to the judges that he is both autistic and blind. He answers a few introductory questions himself, but while he answers them, there's some hesitation in his voice while he talks, and you can tell by his cadence and inflection that it's a little harder for him to get the words out. Eventually, he sits down at the piano, his mom walks off stage, and he gets ready to take it away. And when he's performing this song, it is like he completely transforms into a different person. All that tension and stiffness in his body when he first comes on stage has just melted away, and he's playing the keys just effortlessly. And the same when he goes to sing. He is singing without any of that hesitation or erratic pacing and pitch in his voice when he first came on stage, and he's riffing and belting this jazzy song like a pro with seemingly perfect pitch and rhythm. I had the same initial reaction that a lot of the judges had, just jaw dropped, eyes teary and blown away. But after my initial excitement had settled down a bit, I had noticed something that I didn't pick up on when I first started watching the video: the title. The title of the video read, "Cody Lee defeats autism and blindness with music." Now, for the sake of this talk, because I have significantly more exposure and experience with autism than I do blindness, which I will touch on later, I'll be focusing on the part of the title that reads, "Cody Lee defeats autism." The word defeat is what really started to get under my skin. I started thinking about all the common ways we use this word and the connotations it has. First things that came to mind were defeating an enemy or defeating a disease. Typically, when we use the word defeat, it's when there is something wrong or evil or other that needs to be overcome or ceased in order to reach success or win. So when I see a title that is celebrating the so-called defeat of not an enemy, not a disease, but instead autism, that's when I started to really feel uneasy. On one hand, I completely believe that this video and Cody's story should be shared. If you haven't seen it, please take the time to do so, because it's a really powerful performance and an excellent example of how people with autism can defy the limiting expectations that are sometimes associated with this diagnosis. But on the other hand, I'm looking at this title that is perpetuating the negative stigma that autism is a burden or something tragic that needs to be endured. So as I was thinking through all of this, I was overwhelmed with doubt. Should I feel guilty that I posted this video on my own timeline immediately before I had really digested what the title was saying? Or is spreading autism awareness with this story outweighing all the potential harmful effects of the wording? Interestingly enough, a few days later, I went to show the video again to another friend, this time ready to blurt out a disclaimer to rid myself of any guilt about the title. And I had noticed that the title had been changed to "Cody Lee wows you with a historic music moment." And I saw this and I immediately thought, oh, someone else had that same visceral reaction I did, contacted the AGT marketing team, and got them to change the title. And I tried to do some Googling, figure out what was going on, why the change was made, and I couldn't find anything. But this change in the wording did ignite my curiosity, so I decided to take this research a little further. And I quickly realized I was definitely not the only person who felt this way. Many people who are both a part of or allies with the autism community were having similar concerns about the ways in which we were discussing autism in our public discourse and the impact of the rhetoric that has been normalized. And I happened to also notice that these articles that were unpacking this concern also were shining a light on the neurodiversity movement. For those of you who are unfamiliar, the neurodiversity movement is an approach to autism advocacy that is focused on the idea of autism not being recognized as a disorder, but rather being acknowledged as a neurodivergence or a different neurology. So instead of looking at autism as something that is ill or cure-worthy, it's prioritizing autism acceptance and integration of people with different neurologies like autism into our communities. Think about it. When we use words like disorder or disability, we are already setting up misconceptions on what these people are capable of. If you break down the word disability into its parts, into its Latin root, it is implying that it is lacking ability or without ability. So growing up with my brother Blake, I learned at a very, very young age that this couldn't be farther from the truth. This is Blake. He is my older brother and by far one of my favorite people in the world, hands down. Yes, he has autism, but that is only just one fraction of the beautifully intricate mind and nuanced personality that makes Blake Blake. I love and admire him for reasons that are unrelated to his autism and because of his autism, but never despite of his autism. I could go on and on about all of his abilities. He has an insanely good memory. He can remember the day of a week that an event happened years and years back. He's super observant. He knows the exact gas station and exit number on I-95 where his favorite radio station starts to become a little staticky. He is very clean and never misses a detail. He can notice when a literal speck or stray hair or fuzz is in a place it shouldn't be. And if your house needs a little more tidying up, he is not afraid to let you know that. And in the nicest way possible, mind you. And he's also just a wonderful energy to be around. He's positive and bubbly almost all of the time. He is super empathetic, so much so that if we're in a restaurant in public, he starts to get concerned if he hears a baby crying, wondering if they're okay. See, I don't think of Blake as someone who is lacking ability because I get the privilege on a daily basis of getting to witness all of his amazing abilities and qualities. Now, I'm sure there are a few people who are listening to this speech right now that think I'm way overthinking these words and dissecting them to a fault. You know, some people like me might be perceived as being too sensitive or taking PC culture to an unnecessary extreme, and if you're one of those people, I don't blame you. I also have had my doubts of maybe I'm overestimating the power of a word, a phrase, a sentence, a title, and instead missing the bigger point. The point is we should be happy that videos like Cody's are going viral, and I should be glad that autism awareness is spreading in general rather than getting so hung up in these little details. But when I was doing my research, I came across another set of statistics that made me realize it's not just autism awareness that is the priority right now, it's acceptance. According to the State of Autism Acceptance Report, which is conducted by a public global data analysis company, In America, the amount of autism awareness has been increasing pretty well over the past few years, and over 2 in 5 Americans think that autism therapy methods should be provided for free, which is incredible. But in that same report, it was revealed that only 27% said they would trust a services professional, such as an IT technician or a plumber, who was diagnosed with autism. And less than a quarter of the people who were surveyed in this said that they would trust an esteemed professional like a lawyer or doctor if they had autism. On top of that, almost 50% of people said they would cancel their appointment with someone if they found out that the highly skilled professional had autism. And what I find interesting about these statistics, and very ironic, is that all the skills that I mentioned that Blake has, and a lot of other individuals with autism have, being very detail-oriented, very observant, organized, clean, excellent memory, etc., these are typically the things that we put under our special skills on our resume that we are exaggerating and lying about just to get the job. But for people like Haley Moss, having an impressive resume isn't enough to make the job process easy. This is Haley. She graduated with a bachelor's in criminology and psychology. She got her law degree from the University of Miami, and she passed the Florida bar with ease after just one try. She has a laser-focused mind and near photographic memory, and because of this, she is able to comb through thousands and thousands of documents and catch all of the most minute details. She can notice patterns, see connections that a lot of other lawyers have missed, and because of this, on paper, she seems like the poster child for the perfect law associate. You would think that people would be eagerly fighting to have someone like Haley join their law firm. But in reality, she spent a lot of time hopping from interview to interview with little success because her communication style did not align with those that were necessary to be successful in the interviewing and networking process because of her autism. Even when she actively sought out different law firms that said they wanted diverse candidates, she noticed that on the diversity checklist for these law firms, disability was typically not included on there. So after a few months of rough rejection, her luck turned around one day on an elevator ride when she met this other lawyer. They had a brief conversation, and to Haley's surprise, at the end, she was handed a business card. And shortly after, she ended up being hired by this major Florida law firm. And while it was because Haley's talents and abilities got her the opportunity to deserve this job, it was also because that this lawyer who happened to be on the elevator with her that day had a son who was 16 years old with autism. And because of that, he was able to see past the negative stigmas and fears related to autism to see that glimpse of potential in her. And that's why he brought her on, and she's been very successful ever since. Not everyone in the autism community is as lucky as Haley to get the opportunity to showcase their strengths and abilities. It takes an employer who embraces neurodiversity not only for someone like Haley's sake, but for the sake of the company themselves, because they see it as a competitive advantage and a strength to have people like Haley on board. So for the few people who are out there listening to this, who are employers, local business owners, special event organizers, teachers, etc., don't shy away from difference by taking a standardized approach to your hiring or management or teaching tactics, because if you do so, you'll miss the opportunity to learn from insights of people with different neurologies and therefore different perspectives. But for the rest of us who might not have that kind of leadership position or power, what about the rest of us who don't have autism or maybe don't even interact with people with autism on a day-to-day basis? How can we help? It all starts with the language we use, the connotations we create and perpetuate, and the ways we engage in the dialogue about ability. Because we can't expect neurodiversity to improve if we don't acknowledge that autism provides a diverse perspective. We can't expect people with autism to be able to showcase their strengths and talents if we are only acknowledging them of lacking ability in their title. It's not about spreading awareness in general, but specifically spreading awareness that fosters acceptance and inclusion rather than just empathy from a distance. This is Cody, this is Blake, and this is Haley. And they are all individuals with autism. And when I say individuals, I mean just that. They are all their own people with unique abilities, some extraordinary, some ordinary, and some just different. And don't assume that just because you know their diagnosis, that you automatically know what they can bring to the table. And when I say that they have autism, it's not a disclaimer. It's not a warning sign. It is not your cue to say, I'm sorry, or you're so brave, or offer condolences. Autism is not a derogatory word or something to be ashamed of, and it is certainly not something to be defeated. Autism, when you hear me say that these people have autism, you should hear an opportunity to learn and grow from insights and minds that are different from your own. Thank you.